the woman who was supposed to be afraid. The plaza had been designed for celebration. Broad steps, polished stone, banners tall enough to catch the wind. On the day the Galactic Empire took the colony, the banners were replaced with sigils of conquest, and the steps became a stage. Humans stood in ordered lines beneath armed sentinels whose shadows fell like bars across the ground. The Empire liked order. It liked stillness. Fear, when properly cultivated, was neat. The officer in charge, Prefect Call of the Ninth Compliance Fleet, surveyed the crowd with mild irritation. Humans were smaller than the briefing holo suggested. Softer, too expressive. Their eyes betrayed everything. Panic, anger, grief. He had been told the species broke quickly if pressed publicly. Select one, Call said, not bothering to specify criteria. A trooper scanning array hovered over the crowd, then paused. A woman stood near the front. No weapon, no armor, plain clothes, dust-stained boots. Her hands were bound, but her back was straight. When the trooper gestured, she did not hesitate. She stepped forward on her own. Interesting, Call thought. Confidence or stupidity. She climbed the steps without being pushed. As she reached the platform, she glanced once at the crowd. Not for help, not for mercy. Her gaze moved as if searching for something or someone, and then settled. Call activated the broadcast. Imperial law required all demonstrations of compliance to be recorded and disseminated. Examples were more efficient than explanations. This individual, Call announced, has failed to submit with appropriate urgency. This failure represents a flaw in human behavioral discipline. The woman looked at him then. Her eyes were brown, unremarkable, calm. You may kneel, Call said. She didn't. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Human soldiers tightened their grips on nothing. Call tilted his head, studying her. He could smell her fear, their faint, chemical, but it was restrained, controlled. Not the flooding panic he expected. What is your designation? He asked. She hesitated, just long enough to matter. My name, she said, isn't for you. Call's mandibles flexed in irritation. You will comply. No, she said quietly. The word was small. It carried no threat, but it landed like grit in machinery. Call gestured. The trooper raised its weapon. The woman closed her eyes. Somewhere in the crowd, a child sobbed. A man whispered her name, soft, broken, but the sound was lost beneath the rising hum of the weapon's charge. Call felt satisfaction. This was the moment, the snap that broke resistance. The lesson every conquered species learned. The blast was not quick. The Empire believed demonstrations should be thorough, final. When it was done, the body lay still on the stone, blood seeping into the seams between tiles. The broadcast feed lingered for several seconds longer than necessary, capturing the crowd's reaction. Faces contorted, people collapsing into each other, soundless screams. Call nodded. End transmission. As the signal cut, an aide approached. Prefect, sensors detected a minor anomaly during the broadcast. Possibly a signal echo. From where? The aide checked the data. Beyond local range. Likely irrelevant. Then discard it, Call said. Humans lack the capacity for meaningful retaliation. The aide hesitated. The woman wore a metallic band on her left hand. Cultural significance unknown. Call waved a claw. Sentimentality. Catalog it later. They moved on. The plaza was cleared. The banners fluttered. Order restored. Light years away, in a place without banners or stone steps, a man sat alone in a darkened room. The recording played again. He watched without blinking. Every frame, every angle, the moment she stepped forward, the way she stood, the instant her shoulders tensed, not in fear, but in resolve. He paused the image on her hand. The ring caught the light. His breathing was steady, trained, measured, the kind that could slow a heart to a whisper and keep it there for hours. He rewound. Again, the Empire had not spoken her name. They had not asked who she was. They had not cared. He rose, crossing the room to a locked case set into the floor. When it opened, the rifle inside looked ordinary, modular, worn, meticulously clean. He lifted it with practiced familiarity, checking components by touch alone. On the wall beside the case hung a small photo. The woman, smiling, sunlight in her hair. Written on the back, in a casual hand, "Come home safe." "I will," he said to the empty room. Then he shut off the recording. Far away, the Galactic Empire celebrated another successful compliance. They had no idea they had just taught a human sniper where to begin. The man who never missed. The man did not leave in a hurry. That was the first mistake the Galactic Empire made, though they would not realize it for some time. They expected rage. They expected noise. Humans, according to Imperial psychology, were reactive creatures. Loud grief, violent outbursts, easily detected. The man did none of those things. He finished cleaning the rifle. Only when every surface was checked, every component accounted for, did he lock the case and step out into the pale morning light of the safe house. The world around him continued as if nothing had changed. That, more than the execution itself, felt wrong. 3 hours later, Human High Command learned he was gone. They called him Aiden Cross in internal files, though even that name was flagged as provisional. Snipers like him accumulated aliases the way others accumulated scars. His record was redacted not because of what he had done, but because of how consistently he had done it. Extreme range, non-standard gravity, atmospheric interference. Cross adjusted, calculated, and fired. One shot, one outcome. When the feed reached command, the room went silent. She was his wife, someone said. That changed everything. Orders were drafted within minutes. Stand down. Do not engage. Do not pursue. Above all, do not provoke. Aiden Cross did not operate like other soldiers. He did not require supply lines or support teams. If he decided to disappear, he would. And he had. Cross did not send a message to his superiors. He left no manifesto, no declaration of vengeance. The only thing he abandoned was his insignia, folded neatly on the table beside the empty weapon rack. In its place, a single handwritten line. She was not a target. The first Imperial casualty occurred 17 days later. Governor Hraxtel of Veron Prime was delivering a compliance address from the balcony of his palace. Shielded, armored, surrounded by honor guards and sensor arrays calibrated to detect micro-distortions in space-time. The crowd never heard the shot. Hraxtel's head simply snapped back, the upper half of his cranium collapsing inward as if struck by an invisible fist. He fell without a sound. The shields never registered impact. Medical teams arrived within seconds. Autopsy results were impossible. A single wound channel, narrower than a human finger, passing cleanly through reinforced bone at a mathematically improbable angle. No residue. No energy signature. Imperial analysts labeled it a malfunction, a rare biological failure. 3 days later, another official died during a private meeting on a different world. Then another, and another. Cross moved slowly, deliberately. He did not repeat locations. He did not establish patterns. He selected targets not for their rank, but for their involvement. The officer who ordered the broadcast, dead. The technician who approved the signal amplification, dead. The analyst who dismissed the metallic band as sentimentality, dead. Each kill was surgical, clean, no collateral damage. The sniper did not miss because he did not fire unless the outcome was certain. Imperial countermeasures escalated. Shield harmonics were altered. Atmospheric distortions were seeded artificially. Public appearances were canceled. Officials retreated indoors, behind meters of composite armor and overlapping defenses. It did not help. Cross adapted. He always did. Human ballistics had been designed with Earth in mind: gravity, air density, rotation. Cross recalculated for alien worlds with alien physics, adjusting for variables Imperial scientists had never considered weapons would need to overcome. Wind, temperature gradients, planetary wobble, even a minute gravitational pull of nearby moons. Time, above all else, was his ally. He waited hours for a single shot. Days, if necessary. Hunger, fatigue, pain. These were inconveniences, not obstacles. On the 29th day, Imperial intelligence finally connected the deaths. A single human operative, a sniper, the husband. Panic rippled through the upper echelons. Emergency sessions convened. Security protocols rewritten. Someone finally asked the question that should have been asked from the beginning. Who was the woman? The answer arrived too late. Her name was Elena Cross. Civilian. Non-combatant. Colony logistics coordinator. Married for 7 years. No military affiliation. The file included a photograph. She was smiling, standing beside a man whose face was partially out of frame, or around her shoulders. The Empire had slaughtered her to make a point. Instead, they had drawn a line. On a barren ridge overlooking an Imperial research facility, Cross lay prone, the rifle steady against his shoulder. Below him, Prefect Call exited a transport shuttle, mandibles clicking as he spoke to an aide. The same prefect, the same voice. Cross exhaled. The shot traveled farther than any Imperial doctrine allowed for. It passed through layered shielding, adaptive armor, and alien bone, stopping only after completing its purpose. Prefect Call collapsed mid-sentence. Cross did not watch the body fall. He was already breaking down the rifle, already moving. Behind him, carved into the stone with a vibro knife, were 5 simple words. She was not a target. The Galactic Empire had begun to understand, and the sniper was just getting started. Death came from outside sensor range. The Galactic Empire had faced rebellions before. They were loud things. Fleets mobilized. Cities burned. Enemies announced themselves with banners and rhetoric and fury. The Empire understood those wars. They were measurable, predictable. This was different. The deaths continued, but now they carried something worse than fear. They carried anticipation. Imperial officers stopped sleeping. They avoided windows. Meetings were canceled or moved underground, then deeper, then into shielded void stations drifting far from inhabited systems. Even there, they felt watched. Sensor arrays were recalibrated daily. Detection thresholds were lowered until the systems screamed constantly, overwhelmed by meaningless data. Nothing helped. The sniper did not announce himself. He did not need to. Admiral Vorthkai was inspecting orbital defense platform Theta when a shot struck. The station hung above a gas giant, its gravity unstable, its atmosphere non-existent. Vorthkai stood inside a reinforced observation chamber, wrapped in overlapping fields designed to disperse energy weapons and deflect kinetic impact. The round pierced everything. It entered through the chamber's transparent alloy, passed through the Admiral's thorax, and embedded itself in the bulkhead behind him. The alarm systems triggered half a second too late. Analysis showed the projectile had been fired from a debris field nearly 9 kilometers away. No thruster residue, no thermal spike. The firing position had been abandoned before the body hit the floor. Imperial doctrine was rewritten that day. Panic reached civilian populations soon after. Governors stopped appearing. Propaganda broadcasts ceased entirely. Worlds that had once displayed Imperial banners and pride now dimmed their lights at night, hoping darkness might make them less visible. Among the rank and file, a name began to circulate. The human ghost, the Widowmaker, death beyond range. No one knew which was correct. They only knew that humans had sent no fleets, issued no demands, and made no threats. Yet the Empire was bleeding. In a fortified intelligence complex on Tarsus 9, a captured human officer sat calmly across from Imperial interrogators. Commander Rhea Malik had been detained during the initial occupation, dismissed as low value. Now, she was brought into a chamber with shaking hands and unsteady mandibles. "Explain this," demanded the lead interrogator, projecting images of the dead. "Explain how one human is defeating Imperial security." Malik studied the images. Her expression did not change. "You're asking the wrong question," she said. "Then correct us." She leaned back. "You assume he's doing this to win a war. He's not. Then what is his objective?" Malik met the interrogator's compound eyes. "To make you understand distance." Confusion rippled through the chamber. "Humans hunted before we built cities," Malik continued. "We learned that survival isn't about strength. It's about patience, about knowing where prey will be before it does." "You call Imperial leaders prey?" an officer hissed. "No," Malik said. You made yourselves targets. She gestured to the image of Elena Cross. You killed someone who was protected by every human instinct you failed to account for. Bonding, loyalty, grief. The interrogator hesitated. He is only one. Malik nodded. Yes, and you're barely keeping up. Aiden Cross was already adapting again. Imperial countersniper units had begun deploying predictive algorithms, attempting to model his firing positions based on terrain, physics, and prior kills. Cross studied their models with professional interest. They were close, so he changed variables. He began firing from positions no doctrine would allow: unstable ground, decaying orbits, atmospheric shear zones that should have made precision impossible. His shots curved through interference fields, accounting for distortions Imperial weapons engineers had never needed to overcome. Each success deepened the myth. Each failure of Imperial defense widened the wound. The turning point came on the 61st day. Imperial intelligence finally traced Cross's identity completely. Not just his name, but his history, his training, his psychological profile. And Elena. They released the information internally first, then, in desperation, publicly. The broadcast was meant as an appeal. It showed Elena Cross alive, laughing, speaking at a colony assembly. The narrator's voice was solemn. This individual's death was an error, the Empire declared, an unintended consequence of compliance enforcement. Error. The word spread across human space in minutes. On dozens of worlds, human fleets that had remained docked powered up engines. Not to attack, but to move, to position, to remind the galaxy that humans did not forget their dead. Cross watched the broadcast once. He did not pause it. He did not rewind. He simply marked the location of the Imperial High Tribunal, where the declaration had been approved. When the tribunal convened the following cycle, its members felt secure. The chamber was buried beneath the capital world's crust, wrapped in the most advanced defenses the Empire possessed. No one looked at the ceiling. The shot came from orbit, a specially modified round, fired from a platform drifting beyond sensor focus, punched through kilometers of rock, shielding, and alloy before finding its mark. 3 tribunal members died instantly. The Empire's leadership fractured. In the aftermath, a message appeared on Imperial networks, encoded in a format humans used only for final statements. You called her an error. She was a warning. The Galactic Empire had learned many things about humanity. The most important was this: distance was not safety. It was an illusion, and the sniper was still breathing. The debt that ended a war. The Galactic Empire did not surrender. Empires rarely did. They fractured instead, slowly, unevenly, under the weight of truths they could no longer deny. By the time the High Tribunal chamber fell silent, the Empire's borders were still intact, its fleets still vast. But certainty was gone. Human fleets moved with deliberate restraint. They did not invade. They did not fire. They positioned themselves along contested systems, silent and watchful, their presence a reminder rather than a threat. Every admiral in the Empire understood the message. This is not escalation. This is containment. Behind the lines, panic bred desperation. The Empire's remaining leadership convened on Erwin Prime, the capital world, buried, shielded, and ringed with enough firepower to sterilize a planet. If anywhere could withstand a human attack, it was there. They never considered that the attack would not come from a fleet. Aiden Cross arrived alone. The insertion pod burned away silently in the upper atmosphere, its trajectory masked by natural debris and deliberate miscalculations. By the time it reached the surface, it was nothing more than another piece of fallen metal in a world already cluttered with monuments. Cross moved through Erwin Prime like a ghost. The city was vast, alien, and immaculate. Layers of spires and transit veins, humming with technology and arrogance. He passed beneath it all, descending into maintenance corridors that Imperial security considered irrelevant. He needed one shot, only one. The planetary governor, supreme executor Vol, addressed the Empire from a sealed chamber deep beneath the capital. His speech was meant to restore confidence, to remind citizens that the Empire endured. Cross listened through intercepted transmissions, as he assembled the rifle. Vol spoke of errors and regrettable outcomes, of strength, of order. He did not speak Elena's name. Cross adjusted for planetary rotation, for subterranean density gradients, for shield oscillation cycles that repeated every 47 seconds. When the window opened, he fired. The round traveled through kilometers of reinforced crust, bypassed layer defenses, and entered the chamber from below, striking Vol at the center of his thorax. The speech ended in a wet, startled sound. Across the capital, alarm screamed. Cross was already moving. The broadcast followed within minutes. It appeared on every Imperial channel, unencrypted, impossible to block. A human stood in a plane room, no insignia, no weapon visible. His voice was calm, flat, exhausted. "You killed my wife," he said. "She was not a soldier. She was not a threat. She was loved." The image shifted to Elena, smiling, alive, ordinary. "You did not slaughter her to win a war," Cross continued. "You did to make a point. So let me be clear." The camera returned to his face. "This is not revenge." Silence stretched. "This is consequence." The broadcast ended. Within hours, the Empire requested negotiations. Not demands, not ultimatums, requests. Human diplomats arrived accompanied by fleets that did not advance, weapons that remained cold. The terms were simple: public acknowledgement of the crime, withdrawal from all occupied human worlds, reparations to affected colonies, and one final clause delivered without emotion. Any harm to a human civilian will be treated as an act of personal war. The Empire agreed. They had learned what personal meant to humans. Aiden Cross did not attend the negotiations. He left Erwin Prime in silence, his path unrecorded, his presence erased as thoroughly as his enemies had tried to erase Elena. By the time the treaties were signed, he was already home. The house was quiet. He stood in the doorway for a long moment, rifle case resting against the wall, unsure what to do with his hands. Nothing in his training had prepared him for this, returning without her. On the table lay a folded flag, delivered by command with careful respect. Beside it, a small wooden box containing Elena's wedding ring. Cross sat. He placed the rifle in its case and locked it for the final time. Then he picked up the ring. "I came home safe," he said softly. Outside, the stars burned on, indifferent but changed. Across the galaxy, new doctrines were written, new laws quietly amended. Never again would humans be labeled harmless. Never again would civilians be dismissed as expendable. Because an empire had learned, too late, that humanity did not measure power in fleets or territory. It measured it in bonds. And if you broke one, a human would come for the debt, from farther away than you thought possible. With patience, with precision, and with nothing left to lose.